Welcome to Dock9 Tech Talks.
This week on the podcast, I'm joined by Stuart Cheetham, who is the co-founder and CEO of the fintech mortgage company MQube. Now, MQube promised to transform the mortgage process, and last week we were in the news announcing their partnership with Mortgage Advice Bureau to develop an artificial intelligence innovation lab. So I thought it'd be a great time to get Stuart on to discuss the future of the mortgage technology market and also how they're planning to leverage AI to transform the customer experience. So firstly, Stuart, thanks for joining us today. Do you want to start by giving us a bit of background about yourself and how you came to co-found MQube?
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me on, Mark. I appreciate that. So my background comes in two halves, really. The first half of my career was in intermediary distribution and sales, and I sort of built some large distribution teams for people like Prudential and Scottish Widows. Mm-hmm. I then moved into banking with Lloyds Bank and did a whole range of different jobs for Lloyds. I ended up being the chief exec for Lloyds, running Asia, running banks in Hong Kong, Japan, Malaysia, China, and places like that. Mm-hmm. And actually about 5.5 years ago, I came back from Asia, left Lloyds, and actually started working in fintech. I fell into fintech, really. Mm-hmm. And I started doing lots of work around fintech businesses, advising them, mentoring them. I spent a lot of time in Europe. I spent a lot of time in Israel, mm-hmm. working with different types of fintech businesses, predominantly in the artificial intelligence and predictive analytical spaces, okay. Trying to perfect their products into the banking sort of community and marketplace. And from that really became my awareness and understanding of what artificial intelligence could do and the practical implications or applications of what it could do in the marketplace. And from that, really MQube was formed and came out.
Cool. That sounds like a really deep background you've got in there. So I guess before we dive into the topic of AI in the mortgage market and your innovation lab, for those that aren't familiar with MQube as a company, do you want to give us a quick overview and I guess more broadly around the problems that you're looking to solve?
Sure. Okay. I mean, it's actually when I was based out in Asia, running banks there, I actually ran quite a significant mortgage business mm-hmm. there. And one of the key problems that I saw then, the application to offer time was about 28 working days. And it was a very complex product and business place. And immediately, as every good chief exec does, comes in to change the world and to set a new standard coming into that one. And after a very, very good team worked very hard for a number of months, we shaved literally hours, but not days off that time. And it was in that learning and then later understanding the benefits of AI that I really understood actually, the innovation of the mortgage marketplace is not in making fast decisions by underwriters. It's about creating better data management and understanding data in a much more efficient way. So what is MQube? MQube is a platform that looks to connect the advisory marketplace with lenders, but to do this in an interactive and real-time basis. And to enable us to do that, we use AI and deep learning as the core technology to drive the platform.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, lots of opportunity to drive more efficiency in the UK mortgage market, I think. So I guess, so as mentioned, you guys were in the press last week, I think it was, with announcing your partnership with MAB to launch your AI innovation lab. I'd really be interested to kind of firstly touch on, the bigger vision for the role of AI within the mortgage space that you have in the coming years.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I think when we look at the mortgage market, I think there's lots of really good firms out there at the moment, lots of fintech firms really trying to make a difference. And I think we're coming out to a point of real inflection where there will be a sea change and technology will actually start making a huge, huge impact to the marketplace. And lots of those firms we are talking to and working with and around that. And how we see this as well, it's very much around, there's not one technology or one firm that's going to create a massive bang and everything is going to go okay. It's around transformational partners and it's about working smartly together to deploy different types of skills and expertise into the mortgage market. So, but yeah, if we take a step back there and think about, what makes a great customer outcome? This is probably the main driver of the marketplace. Let's deliver great customer outcomes. So my definition of a customer outcome is basically getting the customer the best product at the best price with the best service, but making sure they still have whole of market choice and advice. I'm a massive believer in advice, and I think technology is an enabler for human advice. I'm not a big believer in robo advice. I see no evidence of robo advice actually working anywhere in the world or anywhere in any sector. So I think human advice, but it's about empowering that process. So everything we think about is looking to create a better customer outcome via an advisory process through the advisory networks. And then we look back and go, let's think about, again, take a helicopter view. What needs to happen to help transform and innovate the marketplace? And I put this down into two big areas. First of all, is about connectivity. It's about making sure that the advisor is connected to the lender. So therefore, there's no manual rekeying, or that it is vastly reduced. The data at the start is the data at the end. Operational delays are reduced and all these things. And there's lots of really good firms out there, all the way from the start to the end of that process, who are really focusing on digitizing the process and trying to connect front to end. And this is great development. And again, as I said, we want to work with lots of those processes. However, how we see the second problem here is all around data management. And actually around saying, even if you connect the start to the end, if you put the wrong information in at the start, you're kind of going to get the wrong answer at the end. Yeah. And the problem with mortgages is actually, and this is really clear in the business I ran, the mortgage business I ran, is you don't actually know the right information and evidence you need until the end of the process. So everybody's on good faith going through a process, giving information, but it's not until it hits the underwriting process do they actually know, have they got the right information? Because no matter how simple a case is, individuals are annoyingly individual. And therefore it is, you can't standardize this process. So we always think about this as a non-standard process all the time. So how do we change that? Well, effectively, what you want to do is you want to link that decision. What evidence, what information do I need? And you want to deploy that in the earliest part of the sales process as possible. Mm-hmm. And you do that through artificial intelligence and creating real-time data images. And this is what the future of the mortgage market, I think, is about. And certainly the vision for MQube is around making that connection and data management happen.
Okay, interesting. So I guess, to your point around robo, we had an event a few years ago that Dock9 ran, focused on mortgage AI. Lots of interesting speakers, and I guess if you cast your mind back 4 or 5 years, there was a lot of excited talk of robo advisors, and you're not going to have a human being advise you anymore. It'll all be sort of automated. But actually, we've seen in our research at Dock9, we do a ton of user research, and we work with a lot of lenders and brokers. That actually still the majority of customers of all demographics still do want that human involvement at the key point in when they need that advice, particularly on their first mortgages, maybe less so on kind of remortgages. But I guess what you mentioned earlier around other sectors, so I think where I have seen sort of robo arguably working quite well is around, in terms of advice, I guess, is a much simpler product. So even things like pensions, so I've got had a sort of robo advice on my pension, because there's basically 7 attributes that I can around my risk and my appetite, etc. But when you think, and also I'm not committing for 30 years or 25 years to do this contract. So I guess the scale of the commitment from the user is quite different. So I do completely agree that the brokers and advice have a really important role here. How do you see the role of the broker then changing sort of practically in your kind of ecosystem in future?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's just go back there as well. So that advice that you're talking about is a relatively simple decision tree, yes, asking you to tell you what your risk appetite is. Yep. Now that's not AI. That is a really, really simple decision tree. They're a rule-based engine that anybody can build and is really not innovative at all, in my opinion. However, what actually the advice you need for your pension, and I'll come back to why this is applicable. Actually, I need to know what your tax code is, your tax situation is, what it will be next year. I need to know what your family situation is. I need to know whether you've got children, because then it becomes an inheritance tax situation. Now that's advice in a pension scenario. Now there is absolutely zero evidence anywhere in the world that one, people want that advice to be robo, to be automated, and 2, there is no evidence, and we've looked at this, to try and create the ability to actually make a machine do it, because simply machines underperform humans in this state. They are not sophisticated enough to do this. So when you think about AI, think about a small child doing something. That is the sophistication of AI today in the modern world. And
Mm.
anything beyond that is just Hollywood movies. So let's flip back to mortgage advice just for a moment. Yeah. So right now, mortgage advisors, I believe, are absolutely key for this. But right now they get sucked into multiple different things around how do I source product? How do I administrate the process of going through this? How do I demystify this process so a consumer can actually understand this? How can I reassure them I can get them a mortgage?
Mm.
And all these things are super important right now, but actually it's not advice. This is almost around the mechanics of managing the process. Actually, what they do that's really, really important is about understanding what your family situation is, what's your career, what's your health, because actually that tells you what's the right product. Do you need a 30-year fixed rate? Do you need a 5-year fixed rate? What ELCs, what portability do you need? All these things become really, really important around those situations. And again, the advisors, certainly, as I see, will become more important in that space, but they'll become less important in doing the administrational or grunt work around this place. And this is a change for the industry, and advisors will need to adapt to this. But this is a key part of the process going forward. But I genuinely see human beings wanting that reassurance and wanting that advice going forward for a very, very long time. That's not a threat. The changing business model underneath will be, I mean, that is transformational.
Yeah.
And that is something the advisors do need to think about.
Yes, completely agree. And I guess, yeah, we work with a number of brokers and have over a decade now. And again, to your point around the administrative tasks, that even, if you think back 10 years, and for many brokers still now, the sending of, paper out and getting paper documents back, and how people give ID and verify income and etc. A lot of that, doesn't really necessarily need human involvement, but, but still, it's kind of freeing up the human beings to give that valuable advice when they need it. I think that's a really sort of good point. I guess also we've been at Dock9 working. It's interesting, so if you think back, as I say, there was a lot of excited talk around robo and etc. But actually, what we're seeing at Dock9, particularly over the last 12 months, has been kind of actual use cases to use AI, and in our instances, the projects we've worked on recently, conversational bots, to help solve specific challenges at lenders, particularly from an operational point of view. So even fielding questions from brokers that don't need a human being to answer around lending policies and things like that, particularly in light of everything that's happened this year when they've really struggled from a service point of view. And I'd almost think, it's perhaps these less glamorous applications that are now starting to deliver kind of real returns. And, I guess that probably chimes in with your approach. I'd love to hear a bit more about the kind of unglamorous kind of applications that you can kind of maybe see for AI.
And Mark, you're absolutely spot on. When you talk about digitizing a process, which is where the industry is today, and automating the process, which is what we're talking about, it has taken out all those really, really mundane, unglamorous things in the industry. There is no magic wand here. There is no black box. AI is not making decisions whether you're a good customer or a bad customer. AI is not going to underwrite any cases.
Yeah.
It simply won't happen. Rule-based engines already do this in most lenders.
Yeah.
They already have automated decisions. Making decisions isn't the hard bit. It's getting the right data into the process. So let me kind of demystify that a little bit to give you some examples. And let's just use something you just mentioned there, a payslip, verifying income. So what does a human being do? What does a broker do? They pick up a payslip and they look at it and they go, that's a payslip. Why? Because unconsciously, we already know this stuff. We're already programmed to know. Okay, what do I need to know about this one? Now I know it's a payslip. Is it the customer that I'm advising? Yes, it's Stuart Cheetham. Is it the company that he's told me he works for? Yes, it is. Does it have his national insurance number on it? Does it have gross pay? Does it have net pay on it? Yes, it does. Okay, I'm pretty happy I can now use it. Is it the right month? Have I got 3 of them? Have I got 3 of these things to make sure that, are they consecutive to go through this process? Now, this is what happens normally. So an advisor is doing this process. It might take them 5 minutes to do it. They then look at the net pay or the gross pay. They go back to the application and go, is this what they told me at the start of the process to make sure I'm verifying the right amount? And is there a bonus on here that I now need to weight differently for the affordability? All of this stuff is very, very natural. It's not complicated stuff, but actually that is can't be digitized in a process like that. So therefore, what we do is we use a range of AI and deep learning technology that is to say the least, cutting edge, to actually be able to go through exactly that process. So
Okay.
you upload a payslip to this through a JPEG, a photograph, a PDF, whatever you want to do. It's irrelevant to us. Don't tell us what it is at all. It comes into our AI pipeline. We look at that and go, we identify that through a range of different techniques. That's a payslip. How do we do that? We can use that through natural language processing, or we can use that through deep learning to look for keywords and also structure within that. Can we see a national insurance number in the right structure and things like that? So then you have a picture. I now know this is a payslip. Fantastic. I now need to extract data. So we then use artificial intelligence to identify areas, blocks of information to extract, to create a machine readable object here. This machine readable object, you can then do lots of things with. You could do simple predictive analytics to it. You could do simple testing to it. You can deploy deep learning onto it to say, actually, does the gross pay and the net pay calculation, add up? Is the tax code look to be correct? Is it in the right format of these things? And immediately you're verifying all the things, just exactly what a human being would do. The difference is, as that happens, and this can be a bank statement, it could be a power of attorney, it could be an inland revenue document, it could be a set of accounts, it could be anything within this stuff. What it is, you then extract out a machine readable format of that, and now you can test it. But it does this literally in milliseconds. Okay. So looking at one payslip takes a second, looking at 3 payslips takes a second, looking at 100 payslips takes a second. And this is where the machine starts to outperform a human being.
Okay. That's really interesting, actually. So your approach is probably slightly nuanced, different from a lot of other stuff I've seen around, people focus on, okay, open banking, for example, like we'll just automate all this data and make automated decisions, etc. But ultimately it's the context, as you sort of alluded to, around, the sequence of pay slips and, the kind of bigger picture. So that's kind of your angle is, using AI to interact even with kind of paper documents and kind of achieve the same.
So there's 3 sources of data that you have in pretty much a mortgage process. You have manually keyed in data. What's my name? How many children do I have? And what are their ages? Do they go to private schools? You can't API that stuff. You have to key it in. There's no choice. Then you have API'd information, automated valuations, credit reports, things like that. You bring in those data sets. And this is pretty standard stuff. IDV, lots of lenders do this, lots of brokers do this. This is not innovative. Might not be really well joined up. It all depends, different people in different places. And then you have documents and evidence come in to meet the FCA suitability and plausibility rules under MQube and the latest regulations. And then those documents come in and then the problem starts, because actually that evidence of that needs to be consumed and the automation of this becomes a problem then. So therefore, a very, very simple problem. And then one of the toughest problems we've had to fix is names, So on my driving license, my name is Stuart Edward Cheetham. On my passport, it's Stuart Edward Cheetham, but in different formats. On my bank statement, it's Mr. and Mrs. Cheetham. And on the utility bill, it's Stuart Cheetham. Immediately, as a human being looks at that, they go, that's Stuart Cheetham. We know it intuitively. But to automate that, you need AI to extract those informations and cross-reference those names to get a confidence level that is the right thing to do. Now you're automating a process and not digitizing a process. And this is what AI will do for the mortgage industry.
And is the idea then also, because obviously you've highlighted the importance of human beings in the process, I think you also mentioned around the underwriting process as well, is it the idea to almost, present an augmented, pre-prepared case so that the manual repetitive tasks are going through a kind of have disappeared, but you still have that kind of presented to you, ready to make your analysis on. Is that part of the vision?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the key. So let's go 5 years into the future, or sometime into the future, but not that far. The key to the mortgage industry, and this is inevitable, in my opinion, it's going to happen. It's all about that. Is it will be connecting the very start of the journey to the very end of the journey in a real-time and interactive approach powered by AI. And what that means is advisors will be empowered to advise on not only getting quick mortgage offers, almost in real time, but they'll be done at point of advice. Not 4 or 5 weeks later when they've gone through a sourcing system, a DIP system, a criteria hub, and then a lender application process, and then a lending process, underwriting process, 8 weeks. This is about saying, right now, what we want to do is we want to connect the front to the back end of the process. So now we've got control of the garbage in and garbage out. Because
Right.
immediately we know what the information we need at the end, because it's right at the start. And
Yeah.
as information comes into this and we digitize and create structured objects in real time, it fires against all those lenders' rules instantly. And as soon as something is inconsistent or missing, and individuals or annoyingly individual happens all the time, it flags it immediately back to the advisor. Because the advisor is absolutely the right person to package the case for the lender. They know, they understand the process, they understand the information, and they can help the customer get through that process. You tell them instantly that I've got 3 months pay slips here, but they're not consecutive. Don't go ahead.
Yes.
You know, there's something on your bank statement, to open banking or a photograph of your bank statement that is inconsistent with our credit record. So therefore, there's a big cash outgoing every month. What is that? And you need to have this pushback interactively, immediately into the and that's what we have built, and that's what we're going to deliver into the market.
Cool. Sounds exciting. I can definitely see the potential for this to quite, be it 5 years or sooner, platforms like this to quite, potentially in quite a big way condense that process down. I guess one of the challenges in the mortgage sector, like many others in financial services, is around, legacy core systems and often multiple. So how do you see platforms such as this and others sort of plugging in or interacting or existing alongside those legacy platforms in future?
Yeah, and there's two issues you're talking about there. It's and first of all, the different lenders and different broker firms are all on different journeys and at different places. So how can you link things through those types of systems? And then actually, how can one set of data be used in a decision? Because you can't, the problem is if a broker uses open banking and pulls off open banking, it becomes an editable format and then can be changed. So now, how does the lender react to that information? Does it ask for open banking again? Does it ask for pay slips, or does it trust the broker? So there's multiple problems here you're talking about. So first of all, how we will come to marketplace is that we work with lenders to help them deliver products to the marketplace, not only faster, not only far more robust decisions because we use far more data in them, but actually earlier in the sales process, while reducing their cost base. So we'll start this journey, and there are multiple ways we can work with them depending on how their systems are. So we can fully integrate with their systems if they actually have a real-time automated engine in there, which some of them actually do have to some degree. We can fully integrate into that one, connect that earlier in the sales process to make faster and more robust decisions. There's a light integration option as well, in case they don't have that, and they can use our platform to do large parts of that. Or there is an option where there's no integration at all, and we can just do this for them at all. And it really just depends exactly where they are on their journey, what product do they want to deploy, how innovative is that product? Because their problem is many times they can't build the product they want because the legacy system stops them do that. And the MQube platform can be configured to deliver any product for any credit appetite.
So it sounds like it, depending on where they are in their journey, effectively, you can sort of sit alongside and potentially support that. I guess that is the, so I've been around sort of mortgage technology sort of for 15 years now, and there's been many waves of, a big platform that's going to solve everything for everybody, particularly if you think back 10, 15 years. And, companies will make these big, rip and replace of core systems, and almost always they wouldn't deliver everything that they ultimately sort of promised at the beginning. So I think we've all moved to a recognition that it's an ecosystem. It's inevitably going to be. And as you mentioned, there's lots of really interesting companies doing lots of really interesting stuff in the space. I think that kind of completely makes sense that, you're not looking to sort of completely replace everything in a lender necessarily, but you can sort of complement them.
Yeah, I'm very clear. We are not, people talk about disruption and innovation in the same sentence, and they're very different things. We are transformational and we want to innovate. We do not want to disrupt. Lenders are there because they're great at lending, balance sheet, liquidity, decision making, history in scorecards. Advisors are there because they've got great ability to advise, which is their core skill. We want to empower both. We want to make both do exactly what they do. We want them to do it better. What we want to do is connect them in real time, and genuine, interactive, real-time journey, bringing effectively the underwriter. Imagine the advisor sitting in front of their customer, which would be a bit weird in today's market because where we are. But just
hopefully next year.
hopefully next year, you're absolutely right. But imagine they're doing a face-to-face meeting and they're advising their customer there. What the MQube platform allows is to put the underwriter in the room with them, effectively. So 3 people are interacting immediately under the direction of the advisor. The advisor is always in control of the process, but the underwriter's there with them. So actually, as they do this discussion, right at the point of advice, at that time, what evidence do I need? What information do I need to give you? And what's the decision? All of this can happen interactively at the same time. Now, this won't happen tomorrow or next year or the year after. I can talk you through the phases I see this coming through, but that's exactly what I think the mortgage market will evolve into.
Okay, cool. It sounds obviously, I think in the article I read that you just kicked off this sort of AI innovation lab, and I'm guessing, when you're doing R&D, it takes a while to get products and end result out of that. Perhaps we should sort of pencil in mid next year for a follow-up episode to kind of have another chat and see what some of the outcomes have been. I'd be really interested to hear kind of where you got to with that. In terms of today,
I'd be delighted to do that. Yes.
Well, let's make that happen. In terms of today, we're almost out of time. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on today. It's been super interesting. And yeah, I'll keep a keen eye on this moving forward. If people want to find out more about MQube or the AI Lab, how would they find out more?
Just come visit us on our website on the MQube website. We will be making more announcements early next year. There's quite momentum of announcements about to come out for the business. And there'll be more information as and when it's available there.
Brilliant. We'll look forward to the catching up then next year then. Brilliant. Okay, well, thanks a lot for coming on, and yeah, we'll speak soon.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Rob.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.